Welcome in to week one of the high school football season here in the state of North Carolina. Scoreboards across the state are hitting all zeros on the first week of Friday Night Lights. And man, we have had some incredible games, some incredible finishes. If you just watched the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Chicken, you probably saw the best finish of them all. Terry Sanford hitting a game-winning field goal as time expired to defeat number 21 ranked 71st. 46-44 in an absolutely thrilling finish. Lots of games to get to from around the state. We're going to have lots of different media members join us from those games, and we'll have the High School OT staff help break things down from the games that they were at. Let's first begin with that game down in Fayetteville, and we welcome in J. Mike Blake to the High School OT postgame show. J. Mike, man, oh man, what can you say about that finish there?
I was saying I could almost be speechless about this game. It was back and forth early on, and then in the second half, 71st gets this lead, and then they have the running backs to really kind of milk the clock or always score. They couldn't be stopped on offense. I mean, when you have a high-scoring game like this, and you felt like, well, maybe they can run this clock out. But Terry Sanford just never gave up. They never stayed out of it. Incredible resilience. They get a touchdown with 1 minute and 7 seconds left, and then we know the onside kick is coming. And we think of that, honestly, all night. The kicks were taking these weird knuckleball bounces off the field, and it did one at just the right time. Bo South picks it, jumps on it for Terry Sanford, sets up a short field. They have 2 timeouts, and they set up a 30-yard field goal for Tice Thurman, a sophomore. And I talked to him on the field, and he was like, I had no nerves. Like, I knew, like, he's like, God's got it in control. I can got this. Quarterback Jacob Moore, who is his holder on the field goal, he's like, I've known Tice for years. He's got this. It is true and upright and good. And so the number 21 team falls tonight, and incredible games. Jacob Moore, who we saw in the High School T Showcase a few weeks back, tonight was just incredible. 20 of 26 passing, 193 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 17 carries, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oh, and by the way, on that last drive, they started off with a trick play. He caught a 16-yard pass. So everything tonight, Jacob Moore just led them. And very rarely was his big, like, game breaker pass over the top. It was just the resiliency, the option play where he holds it to just the right moment and then pitches it, and that guy takes off for 50 yards. Game manager, I know we use that as like a term for quarterbacks that we don't think are that good, but I want to say, like, he managed the game beautifully. So I'm not knocking it at all. He was a game breaker and a game manager. Everything was under his control tonight. Incredible game. And it really is going to it's amazing because on the other side, you look at 71st, and you're like, how do we lose this game? Because they had 303 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns on the ground, 5 by Jason Franklin alone on 15 carries, and 8 carries, 102 yards for Sean Palmer. But yet the Bulldogs are 1-0.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, J. Mike. I thought that catch that Jacob Moore made there on the final drive, that's what set the whole tape. It set up that field goal that ends up happening there because nobody expected it. And Terry Sanford has this momentum. They're racing downfield, and then the quarterback pulls in a 16-yard catch. Like, at that point, it felt like it was almost inevitable that the Bulldogs were going to find a way to win that one. But a good point that you made there, you know, Jacob Moore didn't look great in the High School OT Jamboree a couple of weeks ago. And Joel Bryant, one of the points that he brought up was, you know, Jacob Moore's ability to be a dual threat quarterback kind of played against him in that setting where, you know, if he was flushed out of the pocket, he couldn't really create because, you know, you weren't able to hit the quarterback. And so there were times tonight where he just extended plays and just made something out of nothing. And obviously that ends up being enough in just what was a heavyweight battle. They were just going punch for punch, J. Mike, it seemed like.
Yeah, and you know, the catch that he made, it was defensive pass interference, and he fought off the guy and then still hauled it in. So, and actually you took the play instead of the penalty because of a 16-yard catch versus 15-yard penalty. So just he was lights out, and I think just for Terry Sanford, they have won their opener now 7 years in a row. So Coach McClellan, who is now, tonight was his 100th game, he's won 73 of those. That's a pretty good percentage. I can do that in my head. That's 73%. Like, just incredibly well prepared, right? Okay, so the high school chamber didn't go as you planned, and because a lot of the names on offense were names that we saw tonight, maybe they didn't go as planned. Okay, you get to work on it for 2 weeks and get ready for 71st, and they did just that. I mean, they were unstoppable on offense. I think at 71st, we knew that offensively they had these running backs, but I think defensively may have undersold how much they lost on defense because Terry Sanford really could not, like 71st could not get Terry Sanford off the field tonight. And it was kind of who had the ball last, and the offside kick said it was going to be Terry Sanford.
Yeah, and one last point, though, to talk about the performance out of 71st. Obviously, Jason Franklin has been a part of this group that has made this incredible run for the Falcons over the last year. They enter tonight's game having only lost 4 games in the last 4 years. Franklin just had, I mean, if that onside kick's not recovered, we're sitting here talking about Jason Franklin and how incredible he was tonight.
One of every 3 carries went to the end zone tonight for
Yeah.
Jason Franklin. He had had a one play drive. 19-yard line is where they got it. It was a bad snap on a punt, and next play Jason Franklin touchdown. And he had a 36-yarder and a 63-yarder, and I mean he was electric. But when you score 1 out of every 3 times you get the ball, and then you still fall short, you're like, ah, man. And actually, Jason Franklin, this is how close we were talking about him. One incompletion on that final drive for Terry Sanford was Jason Franklin playing, which he almost never does, playing defense, coming off the edge, hitting Jacob Moore as he passed it, almost got picked off by a defensive lineman. Instead, it falls to the turf, and a few plays later, Terry Sanford sets up the field goal. So that's how close we were to going either way. And like you said, we could be talking about Jason Franklin, the hero, but instead we're talking about Jacob Moore, the hero, and Tice Thurman, the kicker. Ice in his veins. Ice for Tice. Ice in his veins, making that field goal from 30 yards out.
Yeah, 71st tried to ice him there at the end, and it did not matter as he hit the game-winning field goal for the Terry Sanford Bulldogs. They come away with a 46-44 win. It is 71st's first regular season loss since the COVID spring season in 2021. That is High School OT's J. Mike Blake. He was on the call tonight for the High School OT Game of the Week, presented by Alpaca Chicken. And gosh, J. Mike, we set the bar way too high. Way too high, but
Right.
really excited for next week as we head up to Wake County and have Providence Day, who is traveling to Rollsville for a week 2 matchup. That'll be the High School OT Game of the Week next week. J. Mike will have more from this game, and obviously you can go back tonight and relive all of the moments as Terry Sanford and 71st went punch for punch all night long in an epic High School OT Game of the Week. Thanks, J. Mike.
Thank you, Evan.
So now let's take a look at some top 25 scores from around the state as games begin to go final. West Charlotte and Grimsley, the marquee number 1 versus number 2 team in the state,
Man.
at the Keep Pounding Classic over at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. That game is still going on. It was an 8 o'clock kickoff. High School OT's Jonas Pope IV is there covering all of that. Those 2 teams, again, a lot like that Terry Sanford and 71st game, a little bit in a different way, but they're kind of going punch for punch there. West Charlotte just went up and took the lead on the Whirlies 14-13 in that one. Other finals from the Keep Pounding Classic. Huff, the number 3 ranked team in the state in High School OT's preseason poll. The Huskies, they are down late in the game to South Point. It was a 7-7 game. South Point kicks a field goal late, and the Huskies, they keep pounding. They come back. Ethan Royal, the quarterback, finally getting the keys to the car over at Huff. He has 2 rushing touchdowns, including the game winner there down the stretch. The Huskies come away 14-10 winners. Weddington, the number 4 team in the state of North Carolina, all over Mooresville, 31-10. That was a top 10 matchup in the state. Cardinal Gibbons goes out to Dudley. They win big. The number 5 ranked Crusaders, 34-6. Providence Day, they are tangled up in a battle right now with Roman Catholic from Pennsylvania. It is a 1-score game. Last we checked, 29-28. You can get that final score on the High School OT statewide scoreboard as it is updated tonight. And then we mentioned Rollsville next week. That score should be flipped around. Mallard Creek picks up the big win over Rollsville, 36-21. The Mavericks pick up the home win in the top 15 battle. I mentioned Joel Bryant in Weddington, a big win for the Warriors. We're going to bring him in now to the High School OT post-game show. Joel, Weddington, it felt like their experience is what ultimately rose above the rest in a big game so early in the season. It just felt like Coach Capone, such a great coach, he just had his guys ready to go there from the start.
Well, I think both teams are experienced. They're both senior heavy teams. Um, Weddington's players, I think, are just better. I mean, the Harris twins, um, T.J. Davis at linebacker, the Harris twins on the defensive line. They add Miles Funderburk from Providence Day in that defensive line as well. Mooresville was shut out for, I think, probably 80% of this game until they scored in the fourth quarter with a field goal. Uh, they were not moving the ball at all. Weddington's front seven was so dominant, and then the secondary, um, they shut down those Mooresville receivers. I mean, the Mooresville's a couple of good receivers coming back from last year. They have a transfer as well. Ace Clements, the cornerback for Weddington, he had a shutdown performance tonight. And then Weddington offense, the new quarterback Walker Powell, he did a good job running it. They do a lot of quick game stuff, a lot of screen stuff. He ended up finally airing it out and hit Kelson Tate for a 78-yard touchdown. So if Walker Powell keeps that offense just afloat and keeps them kind of on schedule, Weddington's going to be very hard to beat just because of that defense. You're not going to really score on them. Mooresville has an FBS quarterback commit, FBS tight end commit, like I said, multiple returning receivers, and they couldn't score until the fourth quarter against Weddington. So, really good performance by Weddington and Coach Capone and company. They have those guys ready again.
I spoke a little too soon when I gave out that West Charlotte Grimsley score. It's actually 14-13 Whirlies over West Charlotte, and they just scored again on the ground. Grimsley has had a lot of success running the ball tonight, even though they have the number one player in the country as a quarterback. They've had a lot of success running tonight. Again, Jonas Pope is at that game. It's 21-13 right now with Grimsley ahead in that one. Joel, as we go across some of these top 25 scores, let's look at a couple others that are in the top 15 of the high school OT rankings. Millbrook, they got out to a big lead, pull away for a 34-13 win against Garner. Independence, they score late, break a 21-21 tie, and defeat Gaffney out of South Carolina. Some really good showings from top 10 North Carolina teams going up
that
against
was that was a Jaden Jones punt return touchdown at the end of the game that won advance that game over Gaffney.
I mean, what else can you say about Jaden Jones? I mean, what he's been able to accomplish the last 3 years, and from his playoff run 2 years ago to just a dominant junior season, he gets his senior year started off right there. Hoggard, a home win for the Vikings, 28-21. They end up scoring late to defeat Richmond. That was a 20-11 matchup. Reagan, the return of Jacob Smith, their NC State quarterback, they had a kind of a slow start and ended up just crossing the finish line with a 14-0 victory tonight over Mount Tabor in a county rivalry. Crest up big on Burns. I don't know if that game's quite final yet, but it was 55-7 in the fourth. And then West Forsyth absolutely rolls over Davie County 35-0. Those are your top.
Wait, West Forsyth shut out Davie?
Yes, 35-0.
That's impressive because Davie had a really encouraging quarterback coming up for a sophomore year, Drayton Nance. He had a very encouraging freshman year last year. They still have their best receiver, Ethan Driver. So West Forsyth shutting them out is a good sign for that team. I was expecting West Forsyth to be pretty good on offense, but that defense was kind of curiosity for me. So that's a good sign for them.
Burns actually got a touchdown there very late in the fourth quarter. So that final there is Crest 55, Burns 14. As we move along, Joel, Keep Pounding Classic, Huff getting the big win. A lot of questions of what would it look like as Ethan Royal being the quarterback. He leads them to the victory. And then obviously, this game's still in progress between number 1 and number 2. It sounds like Grimsley's doing their thing, and it's a defensive battle there, but the Whirlies are starting to pull away.
Yeah, for Huff, that's a very encouraging win for them. Ethan Royal got there as a freshman. He was going to go to Clinton High School. He got there as a freshman. He already had an offer, I think a verbal offer. It might not have been an official real offer from Arkansas before his freshman year. So he's had hype coming into it, and he's been hyped up for a couple of years, but he was behind Trey Blakeney, the former quarterback at Huff, for a couple of years. They did use him in spurts on offense. They had special stuff for him. But yeah, I mean, coming in for your first start against a team that from South Carolina everyone raves about. I don't know much about them. I know people say they're good at South Point with the E. And to come in that environment and deliver 2 rushing touchdowns and win the game for your team, that's an impressive first start for Ethan Royal. And yeah, the Grimsley West Charlotte. Grimsley's defense appears to have not missed too much of a beat from last year, even without Bryce Davis, the defensive end. West Charlotte's offense is pretty much entirely what it was last year, so this is a very impressive performance so far. I'm curious to see how it goes final here. We're going to hear from Jonas on that later as well.
Yeah, you talk about South Point with the E down in South Carolina, South Point without the E in North Carolina down in Belmont. They get a big win over number 22 Hickory. Hickory tries to go for 2 at the end there to tie, and they are not successful. So it is a 27-25 win for South Point tonight. That was a big upset there. Terry Sanford, obviously on the game of the week, hits the game-winning field goal to beat number 21 71st. Ashbrook up big over West Meck. That was a close game for a little bit, and then Ashbrook began to pull away. Leesville was up for a lot of tonight's game over Jordan, and then the Falcons make a late push to win that one 22-20. Clayton pulled away big late from Wilson Prep, and then Reedsville and Northern Guilford have been tangled up in a close battle up in the Triad. Joel, any of these results stick out to you as you look at them?
Yeah, so when we did, the preseason top 25, we went on to our press box show and we said, the 71st Hickory, being ranked in the top 25 is kind of just based on precedent, right? Both these schools, lost a lot from that senior class last year, but they were both very JV. So, we don't usually, take teams like that out of the preseason rankings. But I think tonight we kind of saw why they were where they were and not in the top 20 per se, because, there were questions. It's interesting that those two schools have been kind of married for a while. They played in the state championship a couple of years ago. They've had similar classes, the similar 2025 class. And it's interesting that they both kind of slip up here in a close game. Clay and Wilson Prep, that one's not surprising at all. Reedsville pulling away from Northern Guilford, intriguing. Northern Guilford was in all these close games last year, and they won all of them. They were 6-0 in close games last year, and they get into their first close game this year and lose. That's usually how it goes in football. That kind of stuff does not stick year to year. I know it's not technically a one-score game, but it's still a pretty close game. Very curious to hear how the quarterback Braxton Johnson played for Reedsville tonight.
Yeah, it seems like he's going to be a really key piece to that team. Obviously, they have some really talented seniors, Deontay Neal, Kendra Harrison there, but, kind of working in a new quarterback who's younger. How's that all going to develop for the Reedsville Rams? Speaking of some close games that we had, not a top 25 game, but a really exciting finish. High Brighton and East Wilkes tonight. High Brighton picks up a 24-21 win over East Wilkes. Aikman Chambers from the Blue Ridge Football Podcast was there. Aikman's now going to join us here on the High School OT postgame show. Aikman, exciting. That one was just back and forth the whole way. In the end, High Brighton is the one who ends up being victorious.
I'll tell you, Evan, man, it was a great game. The atmosphere was good here in Lower Creek tonight. You saw an East Wilkes team punching above its weight class as a 2A playing a 4A. And East Wilkes rose to the challenge. I know that Coach Travis Walker would have loved to come away with a win here tonight, but they showed a lot of fight. Some things didn't go their way down the stretch. The big difference maker in this game, the stat that you're going to look at, the third quarter, East Wilkes only possesses the ball once. That ended up being a big difference maker in this matchup tonight because the Cardinal offense, with that slow, grinded out option attack, was kept on the sidelines for a lot of the third quarter. And it also helps that High Brighton's offense finally picked up this new look High Brighton offense, running the spread with quarterback Elon Lipford. He uncorked a 45-yard beauty of a pass to Julius Martin in the third quarter to give High Brighton the lead. And then High Brighton playing with the deck like it was, immediately an onside kick there in the third quarter to take possession right back and then follow it up with DK Mitchell to get in the end zone. And it was the difference in the game at that point. You could really feel the momentum start to swing towards High Brighton at that point once they were able to double up and get that 24-14 lead. And after Landon Key had added a field goal in there, and it was a swinging point, but give East Wilkes credit. They did not quit with no timeouts late in the game. They were still holding true to their ground attack, and Aiden Guessford scored a late touchdown with 2 minutes to go to make it 24-21, forced East Wilkes' hand to go for the onside kick. The ball did not go 10 yards. Thus, High Brighton starts off 1-0 in 2025.
Quick update here. We were tracking this Keep Pounding Classic, this number 1 versus number 2 matchup. West Charlotte just scored. They're going to try to go for a 2-point conversion here that would tie that game. You mentioned Elon Lipford. We're talking about West Charlotte. Elon Lipford comes over from Independence, initially at West Caldwell. He's had this interesting journey to get to High Brighton, but finally, we talked about Ethan Royal with Joel, how he finally got the keys to the Huff car. Elon Lipford now has a team that he can kind of call his own, and an offense he can call his own. How did it look? And obviously it yielded good results, but how can this thing continue to grow for High Brighton as the year moves along?
There's still plenty of room for improvement. I would guarantee you that Coach Sam Mackey and offensive coordinator Derek Reeves would want to see this offense improved. It wasn't great early. There was a couple of beautiful passes that Lipford let loose, but his receivers were just unable to get it in. There's a couple times he had receivers running wide open, and it was just over their reach. He really had a few throws tonight that showed off the arm strength and the arm talent that this young man has. And again, I think it's only going to get better. You saw it get better in the second half, but I also think don't shy away from DK Mitchell at running back. That young man is a super talent. That young man is a hard runner. He's pretty much got it all. I mean, he really came into his own throughout this game as well. I thought High Brighton's going to have a great offensive attack between Lipford and Mitchell throughout the season. Do not be surprised if by the time we get towards Halloween, High Brighton is not competing for that Western Piedmont Conference Championship.
Well, that is Aikman Chambers. He caught a great week 1 matchup between High Brighton and East Wilkes, and he'll have more from that on High School OT tonight. It's a 24-21 final. High Brighton the winner there. Aikman Chambers from the Blue Ridge Football Podcast. We thank you for joining us here on the High School OT postgame show.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
I mentioned West Charlotte was trying to go for 2 points. They get the 2-point conversion. We are all tied up at 21 with 8 seconds left in the Keep Pounding Classic. Again, this is the number 1 team in the state, West Charlotte, against the number 2 team in the state, Grimsley. Jamori Nichols was the one who scored the touchdown, and I'm being told now that that game is heading to overtime. I don't know if we're going to be able to get Jonas Pope on here when this one ends. Again, we got about another 35 minutes here on the High School OT postgame show, but my goodness, what a finish. Jonas will have full coverage, quotes, interviews. Michael Mann Jr. is also there. He's had some phenomenal photos. If you have not seen them already, Michael is out there with a gallery up from the Huff South Point game that happened earlier today. What a chaotic finish. I'm going to bring Joel Bryant back in here to the High School OT postgame show. Joel, as you're hearing these results, Jamori Nichols scores, we're tied, we're heading to overtime. Could you ask for more out of a 1 versus 2 matchup?
Yeah, no, I think we look pretty good right now. In fact, it's going to overtime. Yeah, I wish I could have seen that, but I know Jonas wanted to go really bad, so we let Jonas go and see it. And Jonas is definitely enjoying himself, I'm sure. I can't wait to hear his kind of like recap of that game. A couple other finals that I just saw lately. Kings Mountain beat Shelby 30-14, and I was expecting that result. Shelby, I thought, was the favorite in this game. Kings Mountain lost some kids to transfer, and sure enough, they beat Shelby 30-14 to open the season. That's from Joe Hughes from the Gaston Gazette. Interesting result there. Very interesting result.
Again, you're watching the High School OT post-game show here. If you're watching across social media, make sure to follow Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. A very exciting night here across the state of North Carolina. We've had some really exciting finishes. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the second half of our show here on the High School OT post-game show. Again, you're watching the High School OT postgame show. Evan Moesta and Joel Bryant here. Joel out on the scene at Weddington, Mooresville. Weddington picks up a big win there. We are closely tracking the Keep Pounding Classic as it is rolling down the stretch and into overtime. 21-21. West Charlotte in Grimsley. Jamori Nichols, the quarterback for the Lions, just scored to head and send this game to overtime. They had a 2-point conversion to come back and knot that one up. Again, some top 25 scores from around the state of North Carolina. Millbrook beating Garner, Independence. As Joel had mentioned, a Jaden Jones punt return gives them a victory over Gaffney. Richmond and Hoggard battled down in Wilmington. The Vikings coming away with a late touchdown for a 28-21 win there. Reagan Mount Tabor 14-0 for the Raiders. Logan Carter, the High School OT contributor, is going to join us soon on that one. Creston Burns, that game is now final. 55-14 is actually the score. Then West Forsyth 35-0 on Davie County. Other exciting games from around the state. As we mentioned earlier, the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Chicken came down to the wire. It was back and forth at Terry Sanford High School. 71st, the 21st ranked team in the state. They got up big, and then the Bulldogs kept hammering away and hammering away and hammering away. And it felt like every time that Terry Sanford would cut that game down to single digits, and you thought there was some hope, Jason Franklin, the USF commit over at 71st, would mash his foot on the gas and run for a touchdown. He ended up scoring 5 on the ground tonight for the Falcons. But at the end, Terry Sanford cuts it down to a 1-point game. They kick the onside kick. They recover it. Then they throw a pass on a trick play to their quarterback, Jacob Moore, who was absolutely phenomenal tonight. And it sets up the game-winning field goal by Tice Thurman for the Bulldogs. They come away with a 46-44 win in that one. Other scores we mentioned, the Keep Pounding Classic. The first game of that one at 4 o'clock today was Huff and South Point out of South Carolina. Huff, a 14-10 victory in that one. Ethan Royal ran for a pair of touchdowns to pick up the victory for the Huskies. 14-10 there at Bank of America Stadium. We mentioned the High School OT Game of the Week. Next week, it is rolling on to Rollsville High School in Wake County as Providence Day makes the trip up to Rollsville. Providence Day has been in a battle tonight. The Chargers have been playing against Roman Catholic out of Pennsylvania. They were up 1. They were down for a lot of that game. We're still trying to get a score here. You can go check it out on the High School OT scoreboard right now, highschoolot.com. Right there on the front page. Right at last check, Providence Day was up by 1 in that fourth quarter. They will be playing Rollsville, who lost tonight. They went on the road to Mallard Creek. Mallard Creek kind of punched the Rams in the mouth early, and from there on out, they held the rest of the way. As I bring Joel Bryant back in. Joel, when you hear this Mallard Creek-Rollsville final, obviously we knew the Mavericks were going to be really good this year. We had them preseason number 12, but did you expect them to be 2 touchdowns better for the entirety of the game?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of looking back to last year when Rollsville went down to play Butler. Rollsville's defense, gave up some, scores to Butler, but the offense scored 50-something points in that game. That's a big difference this year. So they have good pieces on the defensive line. They have good pieces, linebacker and secondary as well. But the offense is so much different from last year because Braden Atkinson is not there. They're the previous quarterback. They have some good receivers. The offensive line is kind of a mixture of guys that are old and new. So that's gonna be the big difference for Rollsville this year is the offense. Last year, obviously, like I said, they scored 50-something points against Butler in that week 1, and that was kind of the game when everyone's like, okay, yeah, Rollsville's for real. This year's gonna be different with Mallard Creek. Obviously, shutting down that offense for most part of the game. It's a very interesting result there. And Rollsville's it's not getting easier for them next week against Providence Day in that defense.
Yeah, I mentioned that Providence Day game was going down to the wire. Providence Day ended up holding on and getting the win there. Another out-of-state win for a team from North Carolina. There have been a handful of those from top 10 teams in the state. They win 29-28 tonight over Roman Catholic from Pennsylvania. One of the games that we mentioned that was in that top 15 was Reagan. They had a 14-0 victory tonight over Mount Tabor out in Forsyth County. Logan Carter was there covering that one. We're going to bring Logan Carter in just a minute. We'll also have Jeff Link and David Jones from Scoreboard Radio. They're about to join us and talk some 8-2-8 football. Exciting night. We've had some crazy finishes all across the state, but it looks like in the western part of the state, there were some pretty wild finishes as well.
Yeah, Jeff currently walking a dog. Just got back to Jeff Link's house after a 62-26 South Caldwell win over West Caldwell. Really an exciting first half. 10 touchdowns in the first half combined for the two football teams, and really a lot through the air. West Caldwell really breaking out more of an aerial attack. 3 passing touchdowns for the West Caldwell quarterback, Joshin Blankenship. They had a 67-yard touchdown pass on a halfback pass from Javante Holloman to Jaden Quisenberry. West Caldwell got a very good track team. Their 4x4 team finished, I believe, 4th in the state. So Jaden Quisenberry was on the receiving end of all 4 of those first half touchdown passes. South Caldwell, though, just bigger, stronger, more depth. West Caldwell rolled out about 23 players onto the field tonight in that game. South Caldwell, far more numbers. I hear Jeff Link coming back in right now. So 62-26, the final score in that one. Corbin McGinnis, the South Caldwell quarterback, 3 passing touchdowns in the first half, 1 rushing touchdown, spread the ball a lot out on offense. Really, I think the story of this game tonight, a pretty even game in the first half. West Caldwell had a tip pass for an interception. South Caldwell turned into 8 points. South Caldwell kicked off to West Caldwell. The Warriors fumbled on the very first play. South Caldwell took that one in and scored. That was the working margin at halftime, 46-26. And then just South Caldwell too big, too heavy in the second half. But, Jeff, kind of your overall thoughts on West Caldwell maybe throwing the ball, and really West Caldwell's chances of getting breaking that 42-game losing streak considering their schedule.
Yeah, scored 26 points tonight. That's the first time that they've scored that many points since the 2022 season. Last game of the 2022 season, they scored 27 points in a loss to East Burke. So some positives for West Caldwell. They're just numbers are a big issue. They've got 23 kids and guys playing both ways on the offensive and defensive line, not getting any breaks, and that's going to hurt them in the long run. But there were more positives tonight than really negatives for West Caldwell, and they've got a chance next week. Avery lost tonight to Hampton County, Tennessee, 60-19. Patton's on that schedule, Drone's on that schedule, East Burke's on that schedule. So there's some opportunities. They just got to stay healthy for that long haul. But South Caldwell looked impressive tonight as well, too, offensively, able to put up some big numbers, spread the ball around, lots of playmakers on that team. You just wonder, was it bad defense or was it good offense, or a little bit of both for both of these teams? I think if you're a fan, that might be your biggest concern going forward was it really just bad defenses that we were able to put this much points out? So I think next week for South Caldwell, they'll get the answer to that question when they take on a much improved High Brighton team.
Yeah, we just talked to Aikman Chambers about High Brighton. High Brighton ended up getting a big win today over East Wilkes. And yeah, looking at that South Caldwell score, as final scores began to come in, that one was one of those ones that we were tracking, and then all of a sudden it just inflated up to 62 points. Some other games from around the area that kind of stand out at last check, as you mentioned, Hampton and Avery. That one just went final. We also had Ford picked up a win over Mountain Island Charter today, 14-0 in that one. As you guys kind of look over the region and some of the games that were on your radar, are there any final scores that kind of stood out to you, or any performances that, as you guys were kind of just sifting through the results, that may have stuck out?
I would say South Point and that triple option offense beating Hickory 27-25. Maddox McCree at quarterback there, signed to play baseball at NC State. And you've got a Campbell signee, an App State signee on that Hickory team. And so they lose out of the gate. That's a 20-plus game, probably, regular season win streak broken. I was impressed that Lincolnton kept that game against Maiden really close. And I think Bandy's pulled away from St. Stephen's, but St. Stephen's, not a lot of expectations on the Indians, and they kept that game close against the Trojans. Brady Sweat, a really good quarterback for Bandies. Those were probably kind of the three that jumped out to me. Jeff, any thoughts on Watauga performing well without Maddox Green or anybody else?
No, Watauga took care of business against Ash. I don't think there was any surprise there. Scored 56 points in that game. Freedom with a 46-6 victory over Patton. But good that Patton's got a varsity team and back out there competing. Yeah, so that's I think that's good for J.K. Atkins' squad. I think, as we said on your show earlier this week, the 8-2-8 preview, I still think Freedom will beat Watauga this season, but those are the two best teams in the Northwestern 6A, 7A conference. McDowell picks up a big win, however, 24-21 over RS Central. That was
back and forth.
Yeah, and RS Central had beat them, I think, for sure the past 2 years, maybe 3 years in a row that RS Central had defeated McDowell. So that was a big win for them as well, too. I tell you, the other big score tonight that I thought that was impressive that raised my eyebrows was Newton Conover defeating Alexander Central 42-21. So we'll see if Newton Conover's one of those teams. They always have athletes, just never can get it put together. Is this the year that they get things put together? 42-21 over Alexander Central. That was a big win for the Red Devils.
Newton Conover going to throw the ball too,
I believe Alexander Central was actually up at the half in that one. I think that was actually a come from behind win down the stretch in that game there. So, really good win for Newton Conover. And as you mentioned, that Maiden Lincolnton score, 29-26, with Maiden coming away with the win. That is a really big one for them. Obviously, they now have Shannon Wingate in their backfield, and that's going to be a really nice addition for that team. We thank you guys for joining us, and hope to see you next week here on the High School OT postgame show.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Good job tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Friday night. We've got South Caldwell and High Brighton in Lower Creek, a couple of 1-0 teams. South Caldwell can win the county championship by beating High Brighton next Friday night. I think that's going to be a really good, really close football game, so we're looking forward to that one.
Thank you, guys. We're going to head now over to Forsyth County, where we mentioned Logan Carter was covering Reagan and Mount Tabor. If you have not had a chance yet, go on to highschoolot.com. Logan had a great sit-down interview with Reagan's quarterback, Jacob Smith. He is a two-sport commit to NC State. He's going to go there and play football and baseball, but his junior year was cut short because the second game of the season, on a drive that resulted in him throwing a game-winning touchdown, he tore his ACL, and it effectively ended his high school baseball career. But there was a glimmer of hope that he could come back for his senior season of football, and he did just that tonight. He leads his team to a 14-0 win over Mount Tabor. Logan, you and I were kind of talking throughout the night. At points, the Raiders looked a little rusty, but I think all that matters for them is they get a shutout win, 14-0.
Absolutely. Tonight, it was John Evans Jr. It was his show. Our stat guy unofficially has him for over 31 carries on the night, for over 250 yards unofficially. It was just an unbelievable performance by him. He got into the end zone twice. The O-line looked really good as far as the first half in that run game. I think Mount Tabor's defense finally started picking it up in the second half. Jacob, coming off an ACL, I think anybody is going to be a little rusty and a little hesitant. So he definitely had some, hesitant moments tonight with two interceptions, unfortunately. But other times he looked really good. So I think that's going to be something over the next couple of weeks as he gets comfortable once again. On the Tabor side, definitely some offensive work as well. But I think for both teams, I talked to Coach Tyshawn after the game for Mount Tabor, and I said this is not a game for either team to hang their hat on. I think both defenses played really well.
So, Logan, as you've probably seen, we've been tracking this Keep Pounding Classic game between Grimsley and West Charlotte.
It's right over here to the left of me.
1-2. It's in overtime. At last check, Grimsley went up 28-21. But since that score update, Jamori Nichols responds for West Charlotte. There was a false start, but the Lions are going to go for 2 in the win. So we are tracking that one here on the High School OT postgame show. This Reagan team, I felt like they left a lot on the table last year once Smith got injured. They had all this promise that they were going to make this big run, and they had this star Division I quarterback, and he's been there the whole way. They were going to have him as this 4-year guy and this star, and then it gets all cut short. So do you feel like the Raiders kind of have a new lease on life, knowing they have this year, they have this core together, they still have Smith, they brought up a strong junior varsity. what is the ceiling for this Reagan team?
I think the ceiling is really high. And like I said, I think over the next couple of weeks, the passing game was just not there tonight, unfortunately. And a lot of people see that in my interview with McGee post game once that goes up on High School OT. Definitely got to see some improvement in the passing game. But if that gets going, I mean, the guy runs for 250 rushing yards tonight. If the passing game gets going, the ceiling is really high, especially in the CPC. I know some other teams, East Forsyth and West Forsyth, dominated their opponents tonight. But like you said, if Jacob can return back to what he was junior, sophomore year, which I think he 100% can, I think they're going to be one team to really watch this playoff time.
Well, that is Logan Carter again. He was at Reagan and Mount Tabor tonight. Always a great battle when those two teams get together in Forsyth County. The Raiders come away with a 14-0 win. You'll have more later tonight from Logan, including highlights, story, and all of that. Logan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
We're going to bring back in Joel Bryant here. Joel, I don't know if you caught it, but There's a really, really, really hectic finish out at Bank of America Stadium right now.
So Grimsley, number 2 Grimsley pulls off the 28-27 win over number 1 West Charlotte at the Keep Pounding Classic. It went to overtime. Faison Brandon had a rushing touchdown to go up 28-21. Then Demore Nichols answers with a rushing touchdown. He's kind of hobbled after that touchdown. They kind of wait a while, then they go out. They decide they're going to go for 2. So it's 28-27 at this point. West Charlotte false starts before the 2-point conversion. That brings the ball back to the 7-yard line. At that point, they're still going for it. The only option they really have is to pass. Grimsley sends a blitz. Safety Mekhi Yon comes up and pressures Demore Nichols. He tries to get it away, and he just can't complete it. And Grimsley holds on for a 28-27 win over West Charlotte in the Keep Pounding Classic. That's a big time finish. I also have a very interesting final from Reedsville. Northern Guilford defeated Reedsville 47-38. It's Reedsville's first opening loss since 2012. They had a 26-game regular season home winning streak, which was snapped. So that is an impressive win for Northern Guilford on the road at Reedsville.
Yeah, we were reporting that game was close. Like it was back and forth, and then Reedsville kind of pulled away a little bit there, but down the stretch there, it was a 1-score game, and it appears that the Nighthawks really ramped things into a second gear there to pick up a big win over Reedsville. As Joel just mentioned, Grimsley holds on and defeats West Charlotte 28-27. Number 1 versus number 2 in the state of North Carolina. I don't think that you could ask for much less than this. I mean, what an incredible finish out of this one. If there was any debate, Joel, over 1 and 2 and how that was going to mix up and how dare you make that team that ranking and that team that ranking, we kind of came out and said, well, good news, we're going to get to decide it on the field week 1.
Right.
And it took a lot of time to decide it. Right. It was truly decided by just a couple of inches in just a couple of seconds.
Yeah, I know there were some Grimsley fans that were kind of like aghast at being number 2, and it still took them overtime to beat West Charlotte, the number 1 team. And I'll just give you a spoiler now. It's just going to be a flip this week. Grimsley will go up number 1, West Charlotte will be number 2. Those two teams are very clearly, very evenly matched. It's unfortunate that it's only going to be a one-off because West Charlotte's 8A and Grimsley is 7A. But yeah, that seems to be a very exciting game for everyone that got to attend it at Bank of America Stadium.
I kind of told that to J. Mike last night. We were talking about Green Level and Cardinal Gibbons playing volleyball, and Cardinal Gibbons, who was number 1, lost to Green Level, and I was like, okay, well they'll flip, and Green Level will be number 1. But to your point that you just made, it's kind of inconsequential now with 8 classifications, because it was like that wasn't really like an Eastern Regional final preview. It was more so just a really competitive and nice game that unfortunately down the road we'll be able to look at this and say, okay, head to head they beat them, but again, kind of inconsequential down in the greater picture.
Yeah, and then the question obviously becomes like, how does West Charlotte deal with Huff in 8A, and then how does Grimsley deal with Weddington in 7A? Those are going to be the 2 new targets for both those teams. So can't wait to find out. We're not going to find out until the playoffs, unfortunately. But yeah, it'll be here before we know it.
So again, Keep Pounding Classic. Grimsley defeats West Charlotte. You are tuned in now to the High School OT post-game show here. We have about 15 minutes left. Don't forget at 11:15, if you are in the Raleigh, the Sandhills, Eastern North Carolina, you can tune in to WRAL TV's Football Friday at 11:15 p.m. with Chris Lee as he ventures around the area showing some of the top games and some of the top highlights in the area. Included in that is the Terry Sanford 71st final, which was an absolutely thrilling finish in the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. In that one, it was it was Terry Sanford who hit a game-winning field goal as time expired to win 46-44 over the defending 3A state runner-up. They're now both 6A teams, so that was a really exciting finish there. We had just talked to Logan Carter about some triad football, some triad final scores coming in now for you. East Forsyth, a big win over Glenn tonight, 31-0. Southeast Alamance, who Joel Bryant has speaks really highly of in terms of what they could have the potential to do this year, 55-22 winners over Orange. Northwest Guilford, we mentioned Northern, picked up the really impressive last second win over Reedsville tonight, 28-7. Northwest defeats Western Alamance in their season opener. And then Oak Grove all over Ledford tonight, 49-0. Joel, I kind of joked, yeah, there's no way we're seeing Jonas here. We got about 13 minutes. You think we can sneak him in?
I bet Jonas, like the good reporter he is, has gone down to the post-game press conference.
And that's going to be a very entertaining press conference, by the way, on both sides.
Very fascinating to see the demeanor from both those teams, but mostly West Charlotte. That's going to be. We're not going to hear from Jonas probably, but we can maybe get him on press box on Sunday, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of reports from him, and his game story is probably going to be amazing. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I mean, what a treat! First off, anywhere that you can go and in one sitting see the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 ranked teams in the entire state. Mind you, it's at an NFL stadium, and the Panthers just do a great job rolling out the red carpet for everybody that attends that event, players, coaches, fans, media, etc. What a treat for Jonas Pope there, and certainly an exciting finish in that one. A lot of exciting finishes across the state. I think that's been a theme of some of these top games, Joel. They're all coming down to the end, and they're all being decided by very, very narrow margins.
Yeah, we just had one out in the 828 where West Henderson beat Irwin 27-21. That game was very highly contested. Irwin had that great breakout season last year, but they did lose all their offensive linemen, and they did lose one of their top pass catchers. So Irwin's not going to have the same kind of win output as last year, but West Henderson is definitely they're no slouch, so it's no problem losing to them. Lots of tight games tonight. I do want to point out, we did have one crazy performance I want to point out. So Tayshawn Martin, the running back at at Mount Airy. Yes, Martin, yeah, we get it. He had 18 carries for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns against Starmount, which is a very good defense.
I think we lost Joel there for a second in this one. We'll bring Joel back in just a moment. He was talking about Tayshawn Martin, the star running back at Mount Airy. He had a big night there. There were some really impressive running performances. If you're watching the High School OT Game of the Week, Jason Franklin of 71st, we just talked with J. Mike Blake, who was on the call of that one in the open. Our discussion was, had the Bulldogs not recovered an onside kick, come down, hit a game-winning field goal, a lot of the storylines from tonight would have revolved around the South Florida commit, Jason Franklin. He runs for over 200 yards. He scores 5 touchdowns on the ground for 71st. And as Joel mentioned, Tayshawn Martin, he had a big night as well for the Granite Bears of Mount Airy. He scores 3 touchdowns in that one as we enter the final 10 minutes here of the High School OT postgame show. Again at 11:15. Tune on over to WRAL TV. You can also watch that digitally as Chris Lee hosts Football Friday. and he heads around the area looking at some of the top highlights from those games. Again, week 2 for the high school OT game of the week. We had week 1 at Terry Sanford with his 71st game. Week 2 heads up to Wake County, where Rollsville will take on Providence Day. Again, that is the high school OT game of the week presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. A really exciting one there. Providence Day was one of those teams that was involved in a very, very tight battle down the stretch. The Chargers pick up an out-of-state victory, which North Carolina has been really good in today. 29-28 over Roman Catholic from Pennsylvania. Other out-of-state victories. Independence, they score late on a Jaden Jones punt return for a touchdown. They defeat Gaffney out of South Carolina, and then in the Keep Pounding Classic, Huff beats South Point 14-10. The number 3 ranked Huskies lean on Ethan Royal, their quarterback, who rushes for a pair of touchdowns and leads them to a come-from-behind victory. South Point, they went up 10-7 late in that one, and then the ensuing drive, the Huskies go down and score at the end of the game. They pick off a pass to seal the victory. A big win there for Huff. Other games to get to, as we've been talking about all night, Grimsley defeating West Charlotte 28-27 in the 1-versus-2 matchup across the state. That was at Bank of America. That one just went final. Faison Brandon gets the better of Jamori Nichols, and an instant classic in that one. As we wrap up and we head down the stretch here in the post-game show, as always, this upcoming week, high school OT rankings coming out over the weekend and into Monday. That is both the statewide rankings for volleyball, boys soccer, and football. You can also look at the area code rankings, the top 15 teams in each region in all of those sports. We have a lot of things coming out. Joel has his huddle, his starting 22, some of the top performers from around the state there. We'll have more coverage previewing that Providence Day and Rollsville game. And then, as always, if you enjoyed the stream tonight of this Terry Sanford 71st game, you can join us tomorrow morning from Garner High School as we host the High School OT Volleyball Showcase. There are 5 matches beginning at 11 a.m. tomorrow from Garner High School. And of those 5 matches, the 10 teams involved, 7 of them are ranked top 12 in high school OT's top 25 poll. There are also over 15 girls committed to play Division I volleyball in that event, 8 of which are going on to play in the ACC or the SEC. Last 5 minutes of the show here as we kind of wrap up, some scores that kind of stood out from around the area. Northeast Guilford was another triad game that we were getting into, 46-0. They defeat Moorhead tonight, as Joel had mentioned. Northern Guilford, they pick up a big win over Reedsville. Reedsville was up late in that one, and then the Nighthawks come back and hand the Rams a shocking defeat there. Reedsville was a handful of teams that have won state championships the last couple of years or participated in state championships the last couple of years that tripped up in week 1. Not only did the Rams lose, not only did 71st lose, but Hickory, they were involved in a barn burner down at South Point. South Point goes ahead 27, or South Point's up 27-25. Hickory has a 2-point conversion opportunity to tie that game at the end, and they do not convert on it. South Point escapes with the win. High School OT will have photos from that one. An exciting finish. We talked to Jeff Lincoln, David Jones. Maiden and Lincolnton, 29-26. Maiden gets the win. It was Shannon Wingett's debut for the Blue Devils. High School OT will have photos up on that one as well. You can check all of those out tonight and into tomorrow morning on HighSchoolOT.com. There'll also be stories up there. Right now, Jonas Pope's story from the Huff win over South Point is up there. J. Mike Blake working to get one up as well from Terry Sanford's big win. Jonas will have more coverage from the West Charlotte Grimsley final, and we'll have stories coming in as well from Aikman Chambers, who we talked to earlier in the show. He saw High Brighton pick up a big win over East Wilkes. Logan Carter and his team out in the triad saw Reagan win 14-0. They'll have coverage from that one as well. Lots of exciting stuff just going around the state. It is great to have high school football back in North Carolina. And as scores go final, most of them now are at the end. That West Charlotte Grimsley game was the finale. It started at 8 o'clock. It was the latest kickoff in the state. So as all these scores are final, you can head over to HighSchoolOT.com and take a look at the High School OT statewide scoreboard. It is the most accurate, up-to-date, up-to-the-minute scores that you can find anywhere else in the state. I'm going to bring Joel Bryant back on here as we wrap up with our final thoughts here on the post-game show. Joel, what a night of football we had, and it's Joel's still having some technical difficulties. He may be, but it was just a crazy night across the board. A lot to kind of decompress and take in and download from how these games happened. But what an exciting night it was across the high school or across the high school landscape in football. Again, if you're watching this on Twitter, maybe Facebook, YouTube, make sure you give us a follow. Make sure you subscribe, as High School OT will continue to have live streams throughout the week, throughout the football season. The game of the week presented by Alpaca every Friday night. Lots of just exciting stuff going on across the state of North Carolina. We thank you for tuning in. Again, High School OT is going to be your place for football coverage all night long and into tomorrow morning, along with the High School OT Volleyball Showcase from 11 a.m. through the end of the night. High School OT will also have coverage from the Charlotte kickoff. There's some really good games happening out at Memorial Stadium tomorrow evening in Charlotte, and High School OT will also have some photo coverage from the North Carolina Soccer Coaches Association select kickoff in Cary, North Carolina tomorrow. Some exciting games going on in the morning there. There were some exciting ones yesterday. I caught one of the wildest finishes between Myers Park and Green Level yesterday. You can see more about that on highschoolot.com. But all around, just exciting things happening. It's great to have high school sports back. And we thank you for tuning in to the Week 1 premiere of the High School OT post-game show. Again, flip on over WRIL TV. Chris Lee is going to take you the rest of the way beginning at 11:15 on WRIL TV and their digital platforms with WRIL TV's Football Friday at 11:15. You will have top highlights from many of the top games in Eastern North Carolina, the Triangle, and the Sand Hills. For Joel Bryant, J. Mike Blake, I am Evan Moesta. You've watched this week's edition of the High School OT postgame show.